Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, and we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, text 18 to 23, and we're going to read text 22. So if you have your devices, you can pull them up. Thank you. I'm Jaya Radhe Devi Dasi, and as I said, we're going to be reading from Canto 2, Chapter 5, text 22. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurumitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadatit Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, a mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnav devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Thakur, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I pray that Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji, Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada use me as an instrument so that their message can flow through me to give me the words to serve the Vaishnavas listening. So, as I stated earlier, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, texts 18 to 23, and today we're reading text 22. Please repeat, if you have it up. Kaladguna Vyatikara Parinama Swabhavataha Karmano Janma Mahataha Purushadishtadat Abhut. Please chant. Kaladguna Vatikara Parinama Swabhavatata Karmano Janma Mahata Purusha Datishtitat Babhut. Kalaguna Vyatikara Parinama Swabhavata Karmano Janma Mahata Purusha Dishtitat Bhut. Kalat, from eternal time. Guna Vyatikara, transformation of the modes by reaction. Parinamaha, transformation. Swabhavata, from the nature. Karmana, of activities. Janma, creation. Mahata, of the Mahat Tattva. Purusha Abhishtat, because of the Purusha incarnation of the Lord. Abhut, it took place. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karana Narvayashayi Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principles of material creation, take place, and then time is manifested. And in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. Purport. By the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord, the whole material creation evolves by the process of transformation and reactions, one after another. By the same omnipotency, they are wound up again, one after another, and are conserved in the body of the Supreme. Kala, or time, is the synonym of nature and is the transformed manifestation of the principles of material creation. As such, Kala may be taken as the first cause of all creation. And by transformation of nature, different activities of the material world become visible. These activities may be taken up as the natural instinct of each and every living being, or even of the inert objects. And after the manifestation of activities, there are varieties of products and byproducts of the same nature. Originally, these are all due to the Supreme Lord. The Vedanta Sutras and the Bhagavatam thus begin with the absolute truth as the beginning of all creations. Janmadi asyayataha. So we'll go back and read the previous text, text 18. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, He accepts through His external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. 19. These three modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under the conditions of cause and effect, and make them responsible for such activities. O Brahmana Narada, the superseer, the transcendental Lord, is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above-mentioned three modes of nature. But He is the controller of everyone, including me. The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by His own potency eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular nature for which they were created. And He again merges them independently. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karanarvashayi Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principles of material creation, take place, and then time is manifested. And in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. 23. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities and material knowledge come into play. So we're continuing this conversation between Brahma and Narada, and Brahma's explaining the process of creation. And so we're getting this really in-depth explanation of how material energy comes about. So we have these three modes that are being discussed: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And in Bhagavad Gita 7:13, Krishna says, deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes of and inexhaustible. So one thing we want to keep in mind is that even though Krishna creates these modes of nature, it's part of the creation, He's above them. And in order to reach Him, we also have to kind of become above the modes of material nature. So how are we bound by the modes of material nature? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Oh, wait, here. Testing. Does it work? Okay.
I was thinking like sleep, ignorance, bound by the need to sleep all the time.
Explained by Krishna. The effect of one who is affected or predominantly dominated over by mode of goodness, sukham sanjayate. So that person is bound to be happy. If someone who is afflicted by the mode of passion, the effect is going to be, I don't remember exactly, kama and krodha, lust and anger. And as you said, someone who is predominantly affected by the mode of ignorance, nidra and alasya, so sleep and indolence and laziness.
Any other thoughts about how we're affected by the three modes?
I think the question was how we get entangled in this material world, right?
You can answer that question.
Yeah, I was thinking of our desires. Yeah, desires is the cause of our entanglement. So we come back. And Prabhupada said, even if you have the desire to have one gulab jamun, you have to come back to enjoy that gulab jamun. So I was thinking material desires. Thank you.
It's true. These are desires that keep us bound. And we're absolutely right. These are the different things. So as it was mentioned in chapter 14, Krishna does explain, how these modes can affect us. And he also explains them in 15, 17, and 18. But initially he says, with ignorance, we don't know what's what. Like, we don't know what to do, what not to do, how to be, how not to be, right? And to sum up text 14, 8, and 9 from the Bhagavad Gita, he says, it binds us to madness, indolence, and sleep, right? So we want to sleep a lot, or we have a tendency to sleep a lot. We can, madness could be anything, right? We could become crazy after things. We could be depressed. We could, I'm not sure what madness in this context means in today's world, but it could mean anything, that we have a lot of mental anxieties, mental troubles, things like that. And then passion basically is anger, lust, and greed, and really driven by desires, ambition. In Bhagavad Gita 14, 7 and 9, he says it's born of unlimited desires and longings, and it's bound to material fruit of actions. So we engage in activities because we want certain outcomes, and we become very much attached to these outcomes, right? And then goodness enjoys the fruitive results of their own work. So in 14, 6 and 9, he says, conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And I've often thought about this, like there's a fine line between ignorance and goodness, right? Because we need sleep. So the right amount of sleep is goodness, but too much and too little is ignorance, right? We need to eat, and eating the right foods at the right time, the right amount is goodness, but too much, too little at the wrong times is ignorance, right? So it's a fine line, like something, if you look at someone overtly and they both are just sitting there, you can't tell if they're in a mode of goodness or ignorance, because goodness, they could be sitting there meditating, thinking, calming their body and just, bringing that sense of peace internally, whereas someone else could be just vegging out, right? So it's like we can't really see that external difference, and it is a fine line. Like we can get so caught up to feeling satisfied in the mode of goodness, and why it says conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge, because we can get so caught up that that goodness can turn into ignorance, right? And sometimes we need that passion to keep us striving for more, especially when it comes to our transcendental progress. In Bhagavad Gita 14:10, Krishna says, sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there's always competition for supremacy. So we have these modes that really drive us. Like as we're learning here, it's time, and then it manifests these modes, and then that creates all these other things, right? So we have the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and then we have our desires that go into that, and that create all the other sufferings and miseries of the material world, as well as the pleasures and, joy of the material world. That keeps us entangled, as she so astutely pointed out. So, what are some ways that we can break free from these modes of material nature?
Krishna says, Mahameva
Bring it
prapadyanti
closer.
mayamitam tarandit.
Yeah.
So, Mameva prapadyanti, one who surrenders unto me, mayamitam tarandit, they can easily cross over this material desires.
That's right. In 7:14, he says, this divine energy of mind consisting of three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So, any other thoughts on how we... Yes, over there.
Another Bhagavad Gita verse is 14:26. Mamcha yovya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman.
Exactly. One who engages in pure devotional service. That helps us transcend these modes of nature. In 14, 19, and 20, Krishna says, when you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, they can become free from death, birth, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So if we're bringing it back to the discussion that we're having right now, in the midst of discussing creation, right? So if we're talking about creation and we're looking at, we've got Karanadakashayi Vishnu and then Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and how does that all relate to transcending the three modes? In contemplating this, I came across Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 5:8, which is really appropriate because it says, Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshan, and he assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. And I thought, wow, this is very fortunate because tomorrow is Balaram's appearance day. So he goes on to say in 5:9, he himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna and does the work of creation in 4 other forms. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. And Prabhupada explains in the purport, Balaram, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also called the original Sankarshan. Balaram, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms. Maha Sankarshan, Karana Abhidashayi, Garbhodakashayi, Shirodakashayi, and Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balaram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestation, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. And this personal service is how we transcend the material modes, right? And so in order for us to transcend the material modes, we have to beg mercy from the original servant, right? The original manifestation of personal service, which is Shesha, right? Which is Lord Balaram. who's the original, who's considered the original spiritual teacher, the original spiritual master. So tomorrow, as we're if we get a chance to attend the festival, or we can attend it online, or either way, if we give some thought to how the spiritual teachers in our life come from this original spiritual teacher, and they've given this potency to be able to guide us in our spiritual progress to serving Krishna, right? If we give that some thought, we can really tap into the pure essence and energy of what tomorrow's festival can be about. So, I was just thinking about all the different ways of how, the spiritual teacher can come in so many different forms, right? We have our main spiritual guru or teacher, and then we have what we call Diksha gurus. And I was thinking about this a lot this weekend, especially as we were having our celebration for our former temple president, Nityananda Prabhu. And I've often thought of him as one of my premier Diksha gurus. He still is. And, I was just thinking in this terms of personal service, right? Like, how do we transform everything that we're learning in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and by chanting, and how do we turn that into personal service? And, that's what Lord Balaram has come here to show us, right? And then he came again in the form of Nityananda to show us that. So what are some ways that we can really engage in personal service to help us manifest this feeling of further personal service? Yes. What are some ways that we can really engage in personal service as we progress through our journey in spiritual progress? So, of Guru, of Krishna. Chanting, right? And not just chanting, but chanting with intention and attention, and trying our best to avoid the 10 offenses, right? Because chanting is hard enough, and then when we add these extra layers of really trying to be attentive, it becomes even harder. So, I've heard it said different ways, right? If it's like some people have this thought process of like, if we can't chant with full attention, then it may, we're chanting offensively, creating offenses, then it's better not to chant. But I've also heard it said that the way we chant inoffensively is to chant, right? So you're absolutely right. It's the number one way we gain personal service. But how do we make our chanting even more personal? Thoughts? Yes, over there.
Well, I was just thinking that personal means you need to get to know the person better. You need to have a personal relationship. You really have to know the person quite deeply, know things about their lives, know about their personal qualities. So, yeah, hearing becomes more chanting becomes more personal by hearing about Krishna, reading about Krishna, and getting to know him better.
Great. Yes.
Srila Prabhupada says, just here.
Just here. Any other thoughts?
Can you repeat the question?
What are some ways we can make our chanting more personal, more attentive?
I thought it was like a different question. I'm sorry.
What question did you... Go ahead and answer the question you thought.
I thought it was like the first one you said. I thought it was how can we make our spiritual progress more personal?
Okay.
Like using some skills or something that we have that we developed in like the in the mundane mode of life, and use that for like spiritual, or use that in service of Krishna somehow.
Excellent. Yes, it's a great response. Prabhupada, Leela.
Yeah, just another thought is a way to make a relationship more personal is by doing things together. So, sharing experiences together. And so when we do service, like practical services, like anything, just any practical services, like so many practical services that we do in ISKCON. It's like we're doing those with devotees, but also Krishna is present in acts of service, that attracts his attention. So you're doing things for Krishna with devotees, but in a sense you're also doing them with Krishna. Like when we chant the holy names, it's like we're chanting for Krishna's pleasure, but also Krishna is present in the act of chanting. When we're hearing about Krishna, but Krishna says that he's also present in an assembly where his glories are being discussed. So when we do these services, we're also doing them with Krishna, and we can feel Krishna's presence when our service is done with the right intention and with devotional feelings. So that way we can develop a more personal relationship.
Very nice. Yes, it's true. I like that we're doing services for Krishna, but also with Krishna. And that's the importance of festivals, right? So tomorrow we'll have a really wonderful festival, and we can engage at whatever way that we feel comfortable engaging. And that can be, if we come to the temple, associating with each other, serving together, as well as, at home. We just want to make sure that we're thinking of ways that we can really dive personally into our relationship with Krishna, with our gurus, with each other. And as you said, as everyone's pointed out, it's using our innate and unique skills and talents to serve Krishna, using what we know, how we, chanting to further our relationship with Krishna, reading, hearing, learning about Krishna, learning about the Guru, and our relationship. That can really help us dive even deeper into this relationship that we have. So I'll stop here because we're at time, and I think like our big thing is just to really meditate on the original Guru, on this form, the fifth form of the cosmic manifestation, right? The Shesha form that we're talking about, that is responsible for personal service to Krishna. And especially, in honor of Lord Balaram tomorrow, it'd be a great way to honor his festival and his appearance day. So, Tarantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.